I can pull that up. Does anyone have that handy? If not, I can pull it up. I've got it right here. Hang on. Apologies. The Jewish holidays have thrown me off along with Labor Day, but I've got it right here. Hang on. Minutes list. Let's see. Yep, it's me. Okay, so I'm going to try to take minutes at the same time. That's what I thought. I come after Peter, and just you guys can remind me, Andrea is next week. So, okay, so why don't we start? Hi, Andrea. I was worried that you were on the fake link that I had created, but I'm glad.
I was.
I've already apologized to everyone, but I didn't apologize to the person who actually got misled by it. And so I am so sorry. Okay. And that will teach me to try to calendar things on a day when I'm not supposed to look at my phone. So I really do apologize. I will not do that again. So from now on, we know our link comes from David Anderson, as weird as that is, until we have a new person in place. So why don't we start with approval of the minutes? And I did recirculate them, and just FYI, I changed one quick thing. Peter, I just saw a typo in my name, that's all. Otherwise, did anyone have any changes? And if not, do I have a motion to approve them as is?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are approved. And I'm sorry if I didn't say the minutes from August 27. Okay, so I feel like this is a little bit like Groundhog Day. And I think today is probably the day that we stop making it Groundhog Day and just decide on the survey, because I know we have other things to do. I did have a very good and long talk with Eugene from Scrog, and I not only explained, where we felt the survey fell short, but I also gave Matt's what I thought very good survey and also cover letter. He explained that as far as the cover letter, that's the consultants feel like that's very important, that the important thing for the consultants is that everybody have the same thing so that the data is the same. He was going to take back all of our comments, but I have not heard back from him yet. I felt when I talked to him like they had changed it several times, and maybe they would change a few things, but I don't think they were going to change the bulk of anything. And so I think we have a decision to make, which is, are we going to go with theirs, or do we want to do our own? And I think there are pros and cons to both, but I would hope that in this meeting, we can just make a decision. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to see if people have ideas and thoughts about which way you're leaning and what you would like to do.
It might be helpful. I did look at Matt's draft when he sent it out a while ago, but maybe it would be helpful, Matt, if you can just give a brief kind of summary of how what you did to yours that's not in the other one, how they're different.
Yeah, I think, well, I drafted the cover letter in a way. I mean, I think my main point in the cover letter was to express that we're citizens of the town, and that what we do, our intention is to reflect the needs and the values of the town of Madison, and that the greater input we have, the greater the opportunity to reflect those needs and values will be. I just thought that was an important point to make in the cover letter, which could be included in the Scrog cover letter too, in a way. But and then the survey, my intention was to make it as simple as possible, getting the most salient information out of the respondents. And so I took some questions that I thought I thought were the most important from the Scrog survey. And then I think I took some of Peter's questions, and maybe Andrea had a couple questions I can't remember, and then kind of combined them into 9. And then at 10th question, I said, are there any other thoughts that you would like to give us as we go forward in this process? So it was a cover letter that expressed that we're citizens looking to reflect the values of the community, then 9 pretty basic questions, and a 10th open-ended one to get people's thoughts in general. So that's pretty much it. I think it's simpler than the Scrog survey. I think it's more local focused. And I think, that's kind of the broad overview, Aaron.
And I think also, Matt, we had that meeting where we talked about what we would write. And so I think it came from there. I know Peter had offered some questions, and everyone who was there had offered some questions.
I think somebody, I think maybe it was Andrea, there were at least 3 questions I took right from that sheet, which also, I think, really, when you look at the Scrog survey, they're worded differently, but they're not that off base in a way.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, I think that's right. I think the just to put it in context in terms of our decision, I think if I were given these 2 surveys and said the consultants have done 2, which do you want to go with? I would definitely say I want to go with ours. It wouldn't be a question. And so the question becomes, if we go with ours, how we implement it. And so there's Survey Monkey, and that could be fairly easy. Of course, for the write-ins, I don't know exactly how that works, but it would be us doing it. I don't really have a problem with that. What we have been concerned about is then would they be able to help us write this plan? That was something Eugene was going to talk to them about and see. And so, I think certainly if we decided today we were going to do ours, then I would follow up with the consultant and make certain that they would still be in for doing our plan. I think what I liked very much about the one we did is that it educates the public about affordable housing while it asks questions. And yet it really gives people a chance to say what they would like and don't like. I mean, for me, what's so important about this committee is figuring out a plan where the majority of residents would say, I like these ideas and I'm not going to fight it. I like where you're what you're saying about affordable housing and where it might go. And so I think in order to do that, we really have to hear from people. I think the Scrog one has some valuable information. It's just diluted and has a lot of extra.
Then we would lose the analysis. If we didn't go with the Scrog one, we would lose the analysis of our data versus the other data they're collecting, because we would basically be opting out of that whole piece.
Say more about what you mean by our.
Well, they're collecting all this. They're going to compile all the data they're receiving from all the towns, and there, I would imagine there's going to be some analysis looking at the data as a whole and against each other, but they're not going to have, if we don't do their survey, they're not going to have the data for our town, right?
They wouldn't be collecting it through our survey, right?
I don't know. I don't think they're going to take, maybe I'm wrong, Sarah, but I don't think they're going to take because it's like apples and oranges. I mean, if they don't have the same questions, how are they going to compile the data?
Yeah, so I think that's right. Although, I mean,
and maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't matter to us.
Well,
I don't know. I'm just putting it out.
What I was going to say is, so for example, they ask demographics, they ask, what's your ethnicity? And so they can write something about, I'm not going to guess what they would write, but, they could say something about, now that they have everyone's ethnicity, now that they have your age, young people really want to see affordable housing, something like that. But I don't find any of that helpful in any way for anything we're doing necessarily. They might tell us it is. And what I mean is for the town of Madison, I mean, maybe it would help us know where we should do a campaign or not, but I sort of feel like our goal is to hear from the town of Madison as to what you want. However, I know that sounds like I'm talking against their survey. I don't like their survey, but I feel like there is some valuable information in there. I feel like they did hear our first set of comments and they did make some changes, and I can't pretend to know what they get out of some of the questions they've asked. And maybe there is something valuable. Maybe that's what you're saying, Erin.
Yeah, well, they're compiling the data from everybody. So I don't know, but there are broader goals besides ours, right? Because
Right.
they're doing this for the region. So, maybe that the compilation of that and analysis of that data is more valuable to them than it is to us as far as how it all fits together for the region. I don't know. But did you have a conversation with them, Sarah, about what it would mean if we didn't use their survey?
I did not have
Okay.
any conversation with them. And pardon me, this is the school nurse calling me. I'm so
Oh.
sorry.
Sure.
So Aaron, what you're saying, there may be a greater good, right, that we're not seeing.
I'm just wondering. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good
putting aside the issue of which survey is better. So we could all sit here and say,
Yeah. No, for
that
sure.
survey is like ideal. But I'm just, before we decide on which one we should use, I'm just wondering if there's some value. Yeah, what you just said. And just to make sure that we're, we might say, okay, we understand that, but we still think that this survey is better and it's going to give us the information that we need to do what we need to do.
Right. But maybe we're not seeing the forest, right? Maybe we're not seeing the bigger picture here.
Well, especially if they say they're not going to help us write the plan. That's
So if they say
I mean,
if they say that we can't, they won't write the plan, then I think we know. And I'm sorry, Peter, I saw your hand go up. Sorry.
Oh, no, that was kind of my question too, is if they'll write I think, how do I want to say it? I think we need them to write the base level plan for us because we have no idea when we're going to have our own plan done. There is a compliance issue that we have to achieve here that's got to get done. It will not be a perfect plan. It won't be like any of the broad-based ones that we've seen already, but I think we need it. And I guess my question is, do we know how soon they would use their survey and how they intend to distribute it? And based on that answer, I have another question or a comment.
So I just want to say one thing, which is I get a lot of questions in this committee as if I'm privy to something, but I just want to be super clear and say, I'm not really privy to anything you guys aren't. Anything I know I've shared with you, meaning I've gone to the SCROG meeting. I thought that first SCROG meeting where they passed out the survey, they really didn't say much. Then I had a follow-up call with David Fink that I shared with you all. And then I had a follow-up call with Eugene Livschitz. So but I have not been able to speak directly to the consultants, which has been a frustration. And you can understand that they get paid a certain amount of money and we're one of the 15 or 13 towns doing it. So I can't, I mean, all I can do is conjecture and to answer your questions. So I did ask Eugene, would we not be able to, would they not do our plan? That was unclear. I think they would still do the plan. As far as Aaron's points of what are they using this information, some of this information for? I don't know when you say they're using it in a regional way. After all, they were hired to do everybody's individual plans. So I don't know what they would be doing regionally, but maybe they are doing something regionally. They were hired by the SCROG, but not to do something for the region. They were hired to do these individual plans. So, and then you said, how soon? So how soon is as soon as we can decide on it. And partly why Eugene didn't want to go back to them with our feedback was because this was their second draft or whatever, and they were ready to send it out. And there is a little part of, we would like to get this out. As far as how to disperse it, I too thought that they would come with ideas of how to disperse it. But so far, I have not heard that from them. What I've heard is you need to be us, the committee, we need to really partner and we need to send it out. And, you know, Peter, when you and I met with the library, they had some ideas of how we would send it out. We've talked here about some places we would link it, but I don't know that the consultant has more ideas. I mean, maybe they do. They have not shared those with us. So I think the survey would go out as soon as possible and we would help disseminate it.
Okay, so I guess my suggestion then at this point would be, I think there is some value to still using their survey and being part of the broader region. I had that view earlier. I mean, I don't think the survey is perfect, but it's better. But I guess what I would suggest, and this is probably verboten when you think about doing surveys, is that we get this one out and then we follow up. And I think Aaron actually made the suggestion with our own survey through our own means, say 2 months later, so that we would have that data by the end of the year using Matt's questions and just follow back up as we have our meetings in town, as we, you know, as we have things posted on the website, et cetera, we begin to bring more focus into what we're doing. And then we lay on a second survey that is very specific to Madison. And even we can even differentiate and say, look, you saw the first survey, it was very broad-based to talk about the region. Now we want to turn around and really get your views of Madison. And I think there is room to do both surveys and sort of accommodate both needs. That's my view.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I will say that is what SCROG has been pushing us to do all along. They've been pushing us to say, well, do this survey, and then if you don't like it, do your own. Other thoughts on that?
I have a hard time believing that people would take the time to do two. I mean, I think after the first one, they may get annoyed a little bit that they're asked to do a second one. I don't know, that's just my feeling.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even know if people reading that SCROG survey would even know what the hell's going on. What is this about? I think, I don't think a lot of people will answer that. I think a lot of people would answer ours.
Mhm.
So I don't think there would be I think I tend to agree with Peter that we probably could pull off both because I don't know. I think this SCROG survey is confusing. I do. If you got 3 minutes to glance at something when you get the mail and you're looking at that, or you get it, you know, somewhere else, I'm just not sure that people understand what the point of it is. But, you know, I may be wrong, but that's to say, I think we probably could pull off two if they were several months apart.
Other thoughts?
I think that using our survey would be an interesting way to kind of cross-check the data that we get from the SCROG survey. And as we go out and try and educate the public afterward, then we have a kind of more personal approach to say, these are the questions that you answered that are very digestible and very approachable. And this is kind of how we can format the SCROG data to fit those questions, or use them to balance each other out a little bit.
So, yeah, go ahead, Erin. I'm sorry.
I
Or to
was
take
just gonna
notes and write, and sorry.
I also think it could be it's just another opportunity to educate the public. So even if I agree with you, Andrea, there are people that are going to say, I'm not doing this again. But I think that what's more concerning to me is not, or where I hesitate is not participating in the SCROG. I think that might be a mistake. And I think that outweighs that some people might not do it. And I think even if they don't do it, they've still seen it, and it's still put the issue in front of them one more time, at the very least. So.
Fine. So, I mean, it sounds like I've now heard Peter and Matt and Aaron and Chad say, you know, the same thing, that we should just use theirs and then do ours. You know, and I apologize because that's something I've fought from the beginning, because I felt like, why not just do it right the first time? But I guess I'm sort of coming around to, there's something to be said for checking the box, so that if SCROG has something valuable, we can use it. using all of our resources to pass out this Scrog one isn't that appealing to me, I will say, and to then use the resources, but there are some, there are things we had talked about doing. So it could be linked on the town website. It could be linked on the library website. We could fill it out. We could ask friends and neighbors to fill it out and see there's another one coming. And so, I guess that's okay with me if that's, I think the Scrog has been very unhappy that we might not use it. One thing I will say, I'm remembering now, is that those very end questions that were about, like, if teachers lived in your area, and it had all these boxes, I said to Eugene, like, I don't know what they're asking. He had so many boxes, and he said he agreed that it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so there were some tweaks they were going to take back, and he was hopeful that he would have a finalized survey by the time of this meeting. But of course he didn't. I felt like there was only so much that Madison could demand they send us another copy of this survey. So I left it alone and I didn't ask him. But so should we, I don't know that we have to vote on this. Do we all sort of agree we will use the Scrog one, but we still want to go ahead and work on ours? Because the only thing I would say is, since we have started ours, maybe now this gives us time to figure out how we would do ours in terms of Survey Monkey, in terms of, and Matt, I'm wondering if you would be willing to sort of chair that, so that if we were going to get ours out, let's say in November, it would be ready to go.
Chair.
And just that
Dissemination
you would
process?
make sure that you would be, that you would own the, so you've already started this draft of a survey, and now we'd have to talk about, if we are going to do ours second after the Scrog, how are we going to do it? Do we need any funds to do it? Are we able to do it on our own?
Right. Yeah, I can figure that. Maybe work with somebody else on the dissemination process. I'm happy to do that.
Great. Okay. All right.
Just a quick question, Sarah, on the issue of resources. I think we talked about that last meeting about, are we getting any money from Scrog to help disseminate the survey, or and what do we need to request from the town? Some kind of appropriation of some kind, so that we have funds to disseminate, for example, in that we talked about the source, talked about, so I think that is something we're going to need to find out. And then with regard to the survey, just wanted to point out, Matt, that some of the ad hoc committees have done surveys for various issues. So we might be able to tap into, find out what has worked well for other committees.
In terms of dissemination?
Yeah, in terms of what tools they use for the survey. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, Academy, they did a survey. I don't know if the Island Avenue Committee did or not, but that's just a side.
So
point.
Eric,
Okay.
when you say they did it, who did that? Do you know?
That's what I know that the Academy School Committee, they hired someone,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
which gets back to my question of, do we have resources? And if so, what are they?
So as far as resources, I don't know is the real
Right.
answer. But I can certainly ask Scrog in terms of, we've paid for the consultant. It seemed to me that the consultant would have ideas and would be working to disseminate it. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
I certainly can ask the first select woman, and this might be something we ask, the whole board, whether or not there are some funds. And I guess first we need to know, what are we asking for? The funds
Right.
for? I will say, in our back pocket sort of is that $15,000 grant that we could ask for if we found that we needed it for something. Those are on a first come, first served basis. I have no idea what towns have or have not applied for it. So I don't want to pretend like that money is, you know, a done deal. And we could apply for it at any time. As I said, it's a pretty simple process. We literally make a budget. We have our Board of Selectmen approve the budget, and then we send it. And it's really pretty simple, but I don't know that we're there yet for this. I don't know that we're not. I just don't know. So your
think we
questions,
should.
yeah.
I think we should go for it.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
And
can
maybe
you
we
go for the
ask,
50,000, but then I need a budget. What would you, like, I don't yet have a sense of, you mean just hiring a consultant to pass out our surveys?
well, I think we have to get some of that information, and maybe David Fink knows of other towns who have applied for the grant and what they're using it for. I mean, if we put anything in the source, it's going to cost money. You know, if we add it as an insert in the paper in the middle, that's going to cost money. So, I mean, we could find out what the cost of that is just as a starting point.
I guess looking at the Scrog survey, I would not want to send that out.
No, I meant ours.
Yeah.
I meant
And
ours.
so we have time if it's going to be ours. I think, you know, the Scrog one is long enough that I'd like them to explain to us how they envision even just printing it out, the paper copies. I mean,
Yeah.
we paid a consultant to do that, so I don't envision paying for those copies. I don't envision
Right.
spending extra money for that. But you're talking about our survey, that makes good sense. On the other hand, in the back of my head, I have sort of, I'd love for people to take us around Madison and look at plots of land and tell us, here's what we could do. Here's what, you know, I've been told by David Fink that developers will do that for free. I think that's maybe a little bit of a fine line because we'd have to have a few developers take us around, right? But so I just, you know, that's the only thing about spending that money. But we certainly, what I can start with is I can ask the first select woman, do we have a budget at all? My guess is we do not. Oh, Heather, please, yeah.
Sorry, so I spoke with Lauren, and she said that she does not believe that this group does have a budget,
Right.
and that we would need to make a special request for funding.
Fine.
Which I'm happy to support at the board level. And I don't think it would be an issue.
So I appreciate that maybe we don't need to apply for the grant necessarily, or we could also apply for the grant.
I feel like it's kind of fiscally responsible for us to apply for the grant if we can. And I'm happy to look into it, get more information on the grant if you'd like.
So I've already looked into it, and
Okay.
And it isn't, as I said, it's not onerous. I mean, it's really what I described. So I don't have any problem asking for it. We would need a budget that makes sense. I don't want to put in a fake budget. That's all. I just don't have a budget right now that spends 15,000. I mean, if we say 15,000 for a consultant, I'd want to at least know that we have some sense of what that would cost. So maybe what you could look into, Aaron, if you would be willing to, is finding out who did the academy, who did the island surveys, what did that cost, and how did they do it? And that would really help us on our way to having a budget. And I agree with you, if we're going to apply for the grant sooner rather than later, since it is first come, first serve.
And how much detail do they want? And are we able to change course? Like if we say we're going to use it for this, and then we decide we want to use it for something else, but I guess that's what I'm wondering, as far as I understand that they want a budget, but what is the level of detail they want for that?
So as far as, and I'll send you the information.
That'd be
As far
great.
as the level of detail, there's not much. There really isn't. As far as changing course, you know, in their materials, they don't say, and then you can just change course. That would probably be a phone call to try to figure out. I think what you're saying makes sense. Let's ask David Fink, has anyone else applied for this that he knows of? And if so, how did they do it and what did they use it for?
Okay.
My gut tells me there haven't been that many who've applied for it. What I'm seeing from the SCROG is that, I tried to say, did anybody else not like the survey? And I was told Woodbridge. Woodbridge did not like the survey. And New Haven had some different comments, but mostly it sounds like, I'm not sure that they got comments, and I'm not sure that they didn't. So I don't know if towns are totally on this grant, but
Okay.
I will
So I-
send you the information, but I think the bigger question is, I will ask David Fink if he
Yeah,
knows.
do you, I mean, I'm happy to follow up with him too, Sarah. I know you've got a lot of to-dos, so.
So honestly, that's fine. If you don't mind following up with him to just say, do you know others who've used it, who've done it? And yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll send you the info, but when I thought we were going to use a consultant to do this, I did reach out to the first select woman and she said she would put, if we gave her the budget, she would put it on, it has to be voted on at a meeting, and she was going to put it on at the next meeting, and then we just weren't ready. So it
Right.
really is as simple as that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Can I just make one quick, the other thing when we're talking about this, we've talked about making a video, which can get really pricey,
yeah.
really quick in terms of editing. So I think that should be something that we consider upfront as well.
Right, that's a good point. That's another cost we talked about.
It's interesting. We just did a 3-minute video on the Madison Foundation website that talks about why you contribute to the foundation, why it's important to the town. And we have various people talking about it from the foundation as well as Guilford Savings Bank, et cetera. And there's 2 guys that did it. And it's like $3,500. It's not overwhelmingly expensive. And it's awfully professional. I mean, my eye is completely untrained when it comes to that. But I thought it was impactful and we all liked it. So it's not brutally expensive to get a video.
Right.
And I can get the price as to what they charged us for sure. So I can do that now.
I think that's helpful. And I mean, maybe I'm sounding naive when I say this, but I'm telling you what kids produce today. I mean, I just know what we used to spend. So, and I feel like we could go to Hand. They have a TV crew,
Sure.
and see if they want to do this as a project.
Yeah.
I've been really impressed with what I've seen. Again, I guess it's an untrained eye, but Erin, did you just say you have to go to a meeting?
I have to run, actually. I had a meeting at 9. But I'll work on my my tasks and I'll circle back.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also going to find out from the source just general costs on that as well.
And you were talking about a 1-page, or maybe a 1-page with a cover, like what Matt did, you're saying?
Yeah, putting it in, and then Peter had talked about getting it on Zip 06. I don't know if there's anything, if there's a cost associated with that, but I'll get some just basic information and I think we've already named a few things that we could put in the grant application already. So yeah.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
Although maybe you could get us a good deal. No. I'm just-
I don't know, I'll do what I can.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Aaron,
Okay, so we've actually made a decision about the survey, so that's exciting. The other thing I thought it was time to sort of make a decision about, and Peter, I would say, if you're willing to talk to those people who did the video,
Yeah, I
why
will.
not? Yeah, so, okay, I'll put that down. Sorry, it's hard to talk and do the notes. So the other thing I think that it's time to sort of decide is scheduling those first educational meetings, what they're going to look like and how we're going to do them. Because I think ideally we'd like to do them in like October when we're passing out the first survey, right? And any thoughts on, I know we've said we'll have David Fink come in. Excuse me. Any thoughts on other people or?
Yes, for me, it's a little bit hard to understand what the turnout to these is going to be. And so it's a little bit hard to kind of predict what the event should really look like. I guess in my head, it makes sense to kind of schedule David Fink as the kind of kickoff to this, and then look at what the turnout is, what the reaction is, and then kind of plan after that. And I don't know, it's a tricky issue, I think.
So as far as turnout, I would say that we're expecting a very low turnout, and that's why we had talked about doing it a few times. But I like the idea of getting a video of it and posting it, on the town website, and posting it where we post our meetings, because certainly anyone then who was interested in what we're doing in our meetings would then be able to see it. But my thought is to keep it to an hour and not more. And I mean, and maybe we just call it, I don't know if we call it like dispelling the myths or something, or
Sure.
affordable housing in our town. Maybe I feel like if we said something catchy, I mean, my joke at the library was that we should put signs all over and say, the affordable housing's going here, and put in different neighborhoods, like different people's homes. Then we'd get like a whole bunch of people and we'd say, no, we were just kidding, but now you're here to live. But people didn't think that would go over so well. But something that we could do to say, to get people a little bit interested, and I know with my own life, it's so insane and busy that I don't know who will come out. But I'm hopeful that the people who would come out are the people who are the most interested in creating this housing. And also, and maybe this sounds weird, the people who are most opposed to it, so that we could really hear from everyone. Because my goal is to hear from the opposition, so that we don't do things that are going to really upset people. And that at the end, we have something that we can really build, because people are, in agreement. I guess in my own head, besides David, I really feel like, I'm happy to introduce people. I don't know that I'm ready to give a panel, but I feel like we should be there, to say that we are the members of the committee. And so people understand it's like your neighbors who are members of this committee, and there's not really like a hidden agenda. It's just to make as much, to make quality affordable housing and to talk about the stock that we really have right now in our community, which is like 130 some units, which is almost nothing. But I also feel like there's value to having a few people who could talk, that you would talk on the video for 5 minutes about either they live in affordable housing here, or they would take advantage of the affordable housing. Pardon me. Like a teacher who says, I would live here, what do you think about that?
I think that makes total sense.
Sorry, I coughed right when you talked. Can you say it again?
I think it makes total sense. It's the personal stories, and like the recognition of like the profession, or these people are just like me, to kind of help dispel the myth, I think is the right approach to this.
What if we set out, if we're going to do can we do the inverse of the order of the surveys? Because what if we looked at our survey as more of, I don't want to say political document, but more of an organizing tool, and then the Scrog survey is really a data-driven survey that's not, not political or advocacy oriented, and set out our survey first as the first announcement, and then organize these forums after that goes out, because I think that would pique curiosity and get people thinking, hopefully, about these issues. Does that make sense? Because I'm looking at our survey as an organizing tool, and as such, if we sent that out first and then organize the public stuff, we might get better turnout and buy-in. I don't know.
It makes good sense. I just am worried about the timing. I think Scrog wants to get theirs out as soon as possible. So I don't know if we would be able to get ours out earlier, than as soon as possible. I don't know if we want them both floating out there at the same time, because I feel like that would
Yeah.
be very confusing.
I just don't see the Scrog survey as, yeah, I agree, but as being, I don't know.
Well, I agree. I mean, I agree. I guess, how soon could we get ours out though? Because I think Scrog's gonna send theirs in September. Or I guess it is, mid-September. They're gonna send those probably beginning of October. I don't know if it's doable. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I
think
hear you.
of Logistics.
I like your idea of having the meeting as a educational meeting, and also dispelling the myths, and where people can ask David Fink questions, but maybe having another person, almost like the property manager of Concord Meadows, who has so much information about people calling for affordable housing, and he knows how many units are available, and the waiting lists and all of that information, that people could also ask questions. I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, but.
So I think that's a great idea. Maybe not the property manager, but maybe even the president of Concord Meadows. I think that's a great idea. I'm sorry, Peter just said he had to work something and he had to go. What if I do this? I love that idea, the Concord Meadows. Let me ask you this. I can think of actually a teacher at hand who would talk to his class all the time about affordable housing and show what a teacher makes and look at houses just anecdotally, and like, none of us can live here and here's why, unless we have and I actually thought maybe reaching out to that teacher to speak for 5 minutes. I have no idea if the teacher would be willing, so I'm not going to say the name. But do you guys, so the Concord Meadows I think is a great thing, and maybe Andrea, if you have interest in asking Elaine, and it wouldn't have to be Elaine if she doesn't want to do it, but I think she would do it justice, or, but are there other, do people have ideas? I mean, Crystal, maybe, do you have ideas of someone who would speak, or just do you know people who you think would be a good speaker on this issue? Meaning,
I'd have to think, give it a little more thought. I'm still sort of wrapping my head around all of this and catching up.
Okay. And so what we're talking about specifically is somebody who would be willing to say, I'd like to live in Madison if housing was more affordable. Or somebody who'd be willing to say, I live in affordable housing in Madison.
Well, what we generally see are people who are living here at risk of losing their housing because they can no longer afford it. That's generally the biggest issue that we see. And I would have to talk to a client, and see if that's something they'd be willing to do, especially without knowing if there is a sort of means to the end for them. We've lost a lot of families over the last few months because they could no longer afford to live here with all the circumstances going on. So there is a great need for this, but it would take a little bit of time to find somebody to talk about it.
Crystal, now that you say that out loud, I'm thinking it shouldn't be a person. It should be you, or it should be someone from your office, someone who can talk about a bunch of different people and the trends that you're seeing. And then you're right, because, it's a sensitive thing, and I don't know who's going to ask a question or what they're, but maybe you could speak about the experience, or someone else. And so this would be, David, maybe it'd be a panel. David would kick it off, or maybe I'd kick it off, introduce it. All our committee would be there. And then David would speak about the myths. Maybe one of us would talk about what our committee is hoping to do. And then maybe Crystal, you could speak about what your job is and what you're seeing. It wouldn't have to be you if you didn't want to do it.
It would have to be me.
It would have to be you?
Yeah, I'm the person who has all the interaction with the clients.
Fine, so even better. I just didn't want to put you on the spot there. But so something you could think about, just like Elaine from Concord Meadows could talk about what she's actually seeing. You could talk about what you're seeing without somebody having to personally put themselves out there and their own circumstances.
Sure.
So why don't we do this? Does everyone agree that sort of like late October is when we're shooting for some of these, and that we're going to shoot for maybe a couple? And could it be live and Zoom? I mean, depending on what the virus lets us do. Heather, oh no, the library said we could do this, right? And you said maybe the senior center, but maybe not, right? Probably not, given.
In terms of in person, you're talking about in
Yeah.
person. It would be very limited to the number of folks that could be in the building at once.
Yeah, I think that the amount of turnout we're going to get is going to be fine. You know what I mean? But I like the idea of recording it.
I definitely could talk to the technology folks and see what we could come up with in terms of recording it.
Okay. Okay, so I think we have a start here. Crystal, you think about whether you'd be willing to speak. Andrea is going to talk to Elaine. I'm going to talk to Dave about speaking. And Matt is working on our survey, and we'll just see maybe if Scrog's not ready, we'll figure that out. And we're shooting for late October.
I'm happy to speak on behalf of my clients.
Oh, you are?
is
Okay, great.
Always my ultimate goal for them, so.
Great. And I think thank you. I appreciate it, because I think that's going to be better than anything. Also, because you're going to talk about Madison, and I think that's important for Madison residents to hear. Okay. I know the time is late, and the only thing I have is other future steps. I want to point out that Heather very rightfully said that, there are other boards out there that we probably want to reach out to that might be interested in helping on this effort. And she gave me a list of boards just to think about. And Heather, do you mind if we circulate that to the group?
No, I can forward that out to the group.
Okay. One group is the Bauer. I don't know if it's the Bauer Park Committee. I don't know what their official name is, but now that we know that Bauer had in their deed something about affordable housing, certainly we wouldn't want to even consider anything without talking to them and seeing what they're interested in. If they have no interest, that's fine, but some of these conversations make sense. I don't know if every single one has to come to the meeting, but maybe we could start to reach out to some of those groups. The other thing that I'm really interested in doing, and we've talked about this, is reaching out to developers, because I really want to hear from them what they need in order to do affordable housing without signaling to them in any way that, you're the person, because obviously you wouldn't be. Do we feel comfortable inviting some of them to a meeting so that we can all ask questions? We've talked about doing this, but we have not officially invited anyone yet.
I think we're at that point. I think it makes sense. It has been part of the discussion on the agenda for like the last 2 months, and I don't see why not to move forward with that at this point.
Should we try to have some of them at our next meeting in 2 weeks?
I think we learn a lot. I would learn a lot, I think, for sure.
Okay, so I know Peter was going to reach out to Hope. I was going to reach out to Beacon. I can reach out to Jerry Davis too. So these are private and affordable, and we tell them that, maybe we tell them we're not looking for any kind of presentation or anything like that. We're looking for a 5-minute on what you would need, and then to be able to ask some questions if you're willing to let us pick your brain. Do you think it's inappropriate to invite a couple at once?
I would actually love to see what the dialogue between them, to be honest.
And what I like about inviting a couple of them is it signals to them, we haven't chosen you, we're not, and it signals to the general community, we're not endorsing anyone. We're more just trying to really hear from a developer what you need so that we're not pretending like we know, you know? Because I don't really understand how we write this plan without really hearing from affordable housing developers and other developers how you could make this work, because Madison, after all, is a town where you could make you could do private housing, and a developer, it doesn't have to be a not-for-profit that could do affordable housing.
Right, exactly.
But we'd want to hear from, yeah. Okay, so I'm happy to reach out to the two that I said. If there are others, I feel like Peter has others, so I will let Peter know that we've assigned that to him. Are there, and I'm going to say, will you come to this meeting, and here's what we're looking for. And since it's Zoom, it makes it a little bit easier for them. If you think of another developer that I'm sort of missing that you'd like to invite to the table, because I'm not sure all of these can come, just let me know and feel free to call them. I don't think there's an exclusive list here. Okay, I think that's enough on our plate for right now. Does anyone have anything else that I'm missing or you want to talk about? Okay, so we will meet again in 2 weeks. Do not look for anything from me in terms of the Zoom, I'm sorry, but do look for the minutes. I will send out the minutes, and Heather will send out the Zoom, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks. If I hear anything about the survey, I will make sure that the whole group knows. Okay.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye all.